In a bustling city park, where children's laughter mingles with autumn leaves, Thomas Mitchell sits on a weathered bench, carefully watching his daughter play while his calloused hands fidget with scraps of wood. His trained eye catches sight of a young girl, maybe 7 or 8, silently crying over a broken doll. Her movements are different, precise, particular, and he recognizes the familiar patterns of autism from his own child. That night, in his modest workshop, surrounded by wood shavings and determination, he creates something special. A doll, with soft features, smooth joints, and gentle eyes that seem to understand. What he doesn't know is that his simple act of kindness is about to change not just one life, but many. Could this humble craftsman's compassion unlock a door to something far greater than he ever imagined? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The scent of fresh sawdust fills the cramped workshop as Thomas Mitchell runs his weathered hand along the edge of a restored Victorian table leg. 20 years of craftsmanship have taught him that beauty often lies dormant in damaged things, waiting for someone patient enough to coax it out. The basement workshop beneath Mrs. Henderson's antique shop isn't much. Exposed pipes snake across the ceiling, and the single-window wells let in more urban grime than sunlight. But it's been his sanctuary since Claire passed away 3 years ago. Above, the familiar rhythm of footsteps tells him Sarah is awake. His 10-year-old daughter moves with a precision that most wouldn't notice, each step carefully placed, following the same pattern she's maintained since she was old enough to walk. The sound brings a gentle smile to his face. So much of Sarah reminds him of Claire, the way she furrows her brow when concentrating, how she arranges her colored pencils in perfect rainbow order, the careful way she approaches the world. Thomas sets down his tools and wipes his hands on his worn canvas. Apron. The brass clock on his workbench shows 6:45 a.m., time for their morning routine. He climbs the narrow stairs leading to their small apartment, each wooden step creaking a familiar greeting. The space above the shop isn't much. A kitchenette, a shared bathroom, and 2 tiny bedrooms, but they've made it home. Sarah stands at her window, watching the morning traffic below with intense focus. She's already dressed in her favorite blue sweater, the one with the soft cotton blend that doesn't irritate her skin. Her dark hair is neatly brushed, though she'll let him fix it properly before school. "Morning, sunshine," he says softly, maintaining the gentle tone that Sarah responds to best. She doesn't turn, but her fingers flutter in acknowledgement. There. Private sign language developed over years of understanding. "The red car has passed 3 times, she reports, her voice carrying the slight monotone that strangers sometimes mistake for disinterest. Thomas knows better. His daughter notices everything, feels everything, often too intensely for words. "Must be someone looking for parking," he offers, moving to the small kitchen to prepare their breakfast. 2 bowls, each filled with exactly 12 spoonfuls of cereal. The milk poured to precisely the same level. Sarah will accept nothing less. As he works, his mind drifts to the stack of bills hidden in his workshop drawer. The rent is due next. Weak, and Mrs. Henderson, kind as she is, can only be patient for so long. The antique restoration business has been slow lately. People want new things, mass-produced and perfect. They don't understand the value of something crafted by hand, something that carries history in its joints and character in its imperfections. He's been taking side jobs, basic carpentry work that pays the bills but doesn't feed his soul, the way bringing old pieces back to life does. Sarah joins him at their small table, settling into her chair, the one that doesn't wobble, the one that faces east, because morning light helps her start the day right. She examines her cereal with the same attention she gives everything, ensuring it meets her standards. "Dad," she says after her 3rd spoonful, "your hands smell like wood again. Is that okay?" he asks, though he knows the answer. Sarah has always found comfort in the workshop smells that follow him everywhere. It's exactly right, she confirms, and continues eating, counting each spoonful silently. Thomas watches her, his heart full of the fierce, protective love that's defined his life since the doctor first said the word autism when Sarah was 2. Claire had been the one to embrace the diagnosis, to research endlessly, to help them understand that Sarah's world wasn't wrong, just beautifully different. After Claire's accident, he'd promised himself he'd continue that understanding, that patience, that celebration of Sarah's unique way of seeing things. The morning light catches the dust motes dancing above their table, and for a moment, Thomas allows himself to remember Claire's laugh, the way she'd say every challenge was just an opportunity wearing a disguise. He wonders what opportunity she'd see in their current situation, the dwindling bank account, the increasing costs of Sarah's special programs at school, the loneliness that sometimes threatens to overwhelm him late at night when the workshop falls silent. Sarah's schedule board dominates the small hallway leading to her bedroom, its laminated surface reflecting the morning light. Thomas adjusts the magnetic strips with practiced ease, though Sarah will verify each placement herself, a ritual as essential to her day as breathing. Music lesson after school, he reminds her gently, sliding the purple magnet into its Thursday slot. The violin had been Claire's idea, a way to channel Sarah's precise nature into something beautiful. Ms. Rodriguez changed her sweater last week, Sarah announces, her eyes fixed on the schedule. The texture was wrong. She runs her fingers along the smooth surface of the board, tracing the familiar pattern of their day. Will she wear the wrong sweater again? Thomas kneels beside her, matching her eye level, a habit Claire had taught him. Remember what we talked about? Sometimes things change, and that's okay. We can handle change together. The words feel worn and familiar on his tongue, like the smooth spots on his favorite chisel handle. Sarah's fingers continue their dance across the schedule. But change feels like sand in my shoes, she says, using one of their special phrases for describing difficult sensations. Thomas remembers the day they created that particular comparison during a disastrous beach trip when Sarah was 6. Now, it's part of their private language, a bridge between their ways of experiencing the world. They move through their morning checklist with choreographed precision. Teeth brushed for exactly 2 minutes. Sarah uses a timer. Hair brushed with exactly 20 strokes. Thomas counts aloud while Sarah watches in the mirror. Backpack checked and rechecked, each folder color-coded for different subjects. The routine is their anchor, keeping them steady in a world that often feels too chaotic for both of them. In the kitchen, Thomas prepares Sarah's lunch while she double-checks her homework. Everything must be separated, no foods touching, no flavors mixing. He places the cut apple slices in one container, 8 pieces exactly, the sandwich in another, crust removed, cut diagonally, and the carrot sticks in a third, 6 pieces, all the same length. The routine takes extra time, but Thomas knows these small details make the difference between a manageable day and one filled with overwhelming anxiety for his daughter. "Dad?" Sarah calls from the table, her voice carrying a note of distress. The math worksheet is different today. The numbers are in boxes instead of circles. Her hands begin their familiar fluttering, a sign of rising anxiety that Thomas has learned to read as clearly as any written word. He moves to her side, scanning the worksheet. Indeed, the teacher has changed the format, probably thinking nothing of such a small detail. But in Sarah's world, these details are mountains. "Let's break it down," he says calmly. "The math is the same, just wearing a different costume. Like when we sand a table, sometimes we use rough paper, sometimes smooth, but we're always making something better." Sarah considers this, her hands slowly steadying. "Like your tools in different drawers?" she asks, finding comfort in the workshop. "Analogy." Thomas smiles, recognizing Claire's influence in their daughter's ability to build these bridges between concepts. The walk to school follows their usual route. 13 blocks exactly, passing the same landmarks that Sarah quietly counts, under her breath. They avoid the construction on Maple Street, The unexpected jackhammer noise had triggered a meltdown last week. Thomas has learned to scout their path each morning before they leave, identifying potential disruptions to their carefully structured world. Outside the school gate, Sarah pauses for their goodbye ritual. 2 squeezes of his hand, 1 step back, 3 blinks. "Today will be a good day," she recites, their daily affirmation another piece of Claire's legacy. Thomas returns the ritual exactly, knowing that precision here means security for the next 6 hours. As he watches her walk into the building, Thomas feels the familiar mix of pride and anxiety that defines their lives. Sarah moves differently than the other children, her steps measured, her posture precise. Some parents still stare, some children still don't understand, but Thomas sees only the strength in her careful navigation of a world that wasn't built for her way of experiencing it. He checks his watch. Time to return to the workshop. Mrs. Jen's rocking chair needs finishing by Friday, and he's yet to start on the Jeffersons' cabinet restoration. The morning routine has taken longer than usual, but he never rushes it. These moments with Sarah, these careful orchestrations of their shared life, are worth every precious minute. Claire would have said they're not just routines. They're love made visible, carved into the texture of their days, as surely as his tools carve beauty from wood. Rachel Chen's corner office on the 42nd floor of the Chen Tech Tower offers a commanding view of the city skyline, but her attention is fixed on the tablet in her hands. Emma's morning report from the private learning center fills the screen, detailed analytics tracking her daughter's activities, moods and responses in 15-minute increments. Modern technology meeting ancient maternal worry. "Ms. Chen?" Her assistant's voice comes through the intercom. The board is waiting. In the conference room, Rachel adjusts her silk blazer, a power move in midnight blue that cost more than some people's monthly rent. "Tell them 5 minutes." Her voice carries the quiet authority of someone who's built a tech empire from the ground up. But right now, she's not the CEO of Chen Innovations. She's just a mother trying to decode her daughter's day through clinical observations and data points. Demonstrated resistance to schedule change, the report notes. Refused alternative art materials. Rachel's throat tightens. Even with all her resources, the best specialists, cutting-edge therapeutic programs, a staff dedicated to Emma's needs, some days still feel like navigating through fog. Money, she's learned, can't simply smooth away the challenges of autism. Art supplies incident nags at her as she gathers her materials for the board meeting. Emma had been using the same brand of colored pencils for months, finding comfort in their familiar weight and texture. The Learning Center, despite their excellent reputation and astronomical fees, had attempted to introduce new ones without proper preparation, a rookie mistake that had triggered 2 hours of distress for her daughter. Walking to the conference room, Rachel's heels click against marble floors that cost more than a house. The sound reminds her of Emma's sensitivity to sharp noises, how she'd insisted on carpeting every inch of their penthouse apartment. Now Rachel works barefoot at home, one of many adaptations that have become second nature. The board members rise as she enters, old money and new tech, venture capitalists and industry veterans. They see the Rachel Chen who transformed a small software startup into a billion-dollar corporation. They don't see the woman who spends hours researching sensory-friendly fabrics, who had a playground built in her private garden because public parks overwhelm her daughter. "Before we begin," Rachel says, settling into her chair, "I want to discuss the accessibility features in our new product line." She pulls up slides showing interface modifications she'd insisted on after watching Emma struggle with standard touchscreens. The board members exchange glances. They've learned that challenging Rachel Chen's pet projects is rarely wise. Her phone vibrates, another update from the Learning Center. Emma is now calm, engaged in her favorite activity, working with a set of specialized building blocks. Rachel feels the familiar ache of distance. She should be there, watching her daughter's careful hands stack and align, seeing the small smile that appears when patterns emerge. The meeting drones on, Profit margins, market projections, competitor analyses. Rachel participates with practiced ease, her mind partially occupied with evening plans. Emma's occupational therapist had suggested trying music therapy, and Rachel had immediately hired the city's top specialist. Yet something nags at her about this constant outsourcing of interaction, this delegation of connection. And the acquisition target? A board member's question pulls her back to the present. "We'll proceed as discussed," Rachel answers smoothly. But her thoughts drift to another kind of acquisition. The endless procurement of services and experts, each promising to make Emma's world more manageable. Sometimes it feels like throwing money at a wall, hoping something will stick. Later, alone in her office, Rachel studies a photo on her desk. Emma at the beach last summer, during a rare, peaceful moment. Her daughter sits in the sand, meticulously arranging shells in a perfect spiral. The joy in her face is pure, unscripted, the kind of happiness Rachel would trade her entire empire to see more often. The intercom buzzes again. "Your 3 o'clock is here?" Rachel straightens, once again the polished CEO, but her hand lingers. On the photo, fingertips touching the glass as if she could reach through and brush her daughter's hair, bridge the gap between their worlds. All her success, her influence, her wealth, and still she sometimes feels as lost as she did the day of Emma's diagnosis, standing in a doctor's office while her world shifted on its axis. "Send them in," she says, tucking away the mothers. Heart beneath the executive's armor. Another meeting, another deal, another step in building a legacy that sometimes feels hollow without the one thing she wants most, the key to her daughter's inner world. The workshop lamp casts a warm circle of light across Thomas's workbench as midnight approaches. The broken doll from the park sits before him, a mass-produced thing of hard plastic and sharp edges, the kind that fills toy store shelves but offers little comfort to sensitive hands. Beside it lies his selection of materials, smooth basswood for the body, the softest merino wool he can afford for stuffing, and scraps of Claire's old cashmere sweater he's kept all these years. "This has to be different," he murmurs, fingers tracing the grain of the wood. He remembers Sarah's early years, how standard toys would overwhelm her senses, how she'd retreat from their bright colors and unyielding surfaces. Claire had been the one to suggest he make Sarah's toys himself. "Your hands understand gentleness," she'd said. Now, years later, those same hands begin their careful work. He starts with the body, choosing the lightest pieces of basswood. The wood plane whispers across the surface, creating curls that float to the floor like pale ribbons. Each stroke is measured, deliberate. He thinks of the girl in the park, how her fingers had moved across the broken doll's face with such precise intention. The body must be smooth enough for exploring hands, light enough for small arms to hold comfortably. The joints are crucial. Thomas recalls Sarah's frustration with rigid dolls, how their fixed poses would clash with her need for order and alignment. He creates ball joints from smaller pieces of wood, testing each one's movement. They must rotate smoothly but maintain enough friction to hold any position. Like Sarah's schedule board, the doll needs to accommodate both structure and flexibility. As he works, memories surface of other creations. Sarah's first comfort toy, a simple wooden bird with wings that could fold into different positions. The set of blocks he'd made her, each face carved with different textures she could explore when overwhelmed. The puzzle box that had helped her learn to dress herself, each piece designed to practice a different kind of fastener. The face gives him pause. Standard dolls, with their painted-on expressions, often disturb children with autism. Their fixed smiles can seem artificial, even threatening. Instead, Thomas carves subtle suggestions of features, gentle curves that hint at peace rather than demand emotional response. He remembers Claire's words about Sarah. "She feels everything, Tom. She just shows it differently." The head needs to be slightly weighted, he decides, remembering how pressure helps calm Sarah during difficult moments. He creates a hollow in the wooden core, carefully filling it with steel wool before sealing it. The weight will make the doll feel more grounded, present, a solid companion rather than a flimsy plaything. For the clothing, he turns to Claire's sweater. The cashmere has aged well, still impossibly soft to the touch. He chooses the parts. Without pills or wear, cutting careful patterns. The stitches must be strong but nearly invisible, no rough seams to catch sensitive fingers. As he sews, he thinks of Claire teaching him these domestic skills after Sarah's diagnosis. "We need to be ready for anything," she'd said, guiding his clumsy fingers through their first attempt at making a sensory-friendly blanket. Hours pass. The usual sounds of the city fade away, replaced by the meditative rhythm of his work. Sandpaper. Smoothing wood, needle pulling thread, scissors snipping precisely. He tests each component obsessively. The arms must move without catching, the clothes must slip on and off without resistance, the overall weight must be comforting without being heavy. Finally, near dawn, Thomas holds the finished doll in his hands. It's nothing like its mass-produced predecessor. The wood has taken on a warm glow from repeated handling, its surface satiny smooth. The joints move with butter-smooth precision, holding any position without flopping. The cashmere clothes hug the form without binding, their seams nearly imperceptible. The face, with its gentle suggestions of features, seems to change expression depending on the angle, sometimes peaceful, sometimes gently questioning. Claire would have appreciated that, he thinks. She always said autism taught her that there's more than one way to see the world. Thomas places the doll carefully in a small box lined with soft flannel. His hands ache from the careful work, and his eyes burn with fatigue, but satisfaction fills his chest. He's created something that bridges understanding, a toy that says, "I see you," to a child whose way of experiencing the world others often miss. As he cleans his workbench, the first grey light of dawn seeping through the window wells, Thomas thinks of Sarah sleeping upstairs. Everything he knows about crafting for autism, he learned through loving her. Tomorrow, he'll return to the park with this doll, hoping it might offer another child the same comfort his creations have given. His daughter over the years. The afternoon sun warms the same park bench where Thomas sat yesterday, the flannel-lined box resting carefully on his lap. He arrived early, anxiety and hope mixing in his chest like opposing grains in wood. Sarah is at her music lesson. Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to extend their usual time when Thomas explained he had an errand of kindness to complete. The park feels different today, quieter. A few elderly couples walk the paths, and a mother pushes a stroller, but the after-school rush hasn't begun. Thomas watches the playground entrance, his craftsman's hands unusually still on the box containing his night's work. Movement catches his eye. The girl from yesterday, her steps precise and measured as she navigates the path. She wears a different dress today, but the same careful way of moving through the world. Behind her, at a thoughtful distance, walks a woman in elegant business attire, her attention divided between her phone and her daughter. Thomas recognizes the dance of supervision. They perform, the carefully calculated distance that offers independence while maintaining safety. He's performed it countless times with Sarah, that delicate balance between protection and freedom. The girl settles into her usual spot beneath the oak tree, her movements suggesting she's searching for something. Thomas realizes she's looking for the broken doll from yesterday, her hands moving systematically through the fallen leaves. The scene tugs at his heart, reminding him of Sarah's distress when familiar objects go missing. He stands slowly, holding the box with both hands. The woman, the girl's mother, notices his movement, her posture shifting subtly. Thomas understands. Her protective instinct. He's felt it himself countless times. He approaches slowly, making his movements clear and predictable. "Hello," he says softly, keeping his voice gentle and even, the way he speaks to Sarah when she's processing something new. "I think I might have something that belongs to you." He kneels at a comfortable distance, respecting the girl's space. The child looks up, her movements stilling. Her eyes fix not on his face, but on his hands, particularly the wood shaving still. Embedded under his nails, evidence of his night's work. From the corner of his eye, Thomas sees the mother move closer, her phone now forgotten in her hand. "Yesterday," Thomas continues, "I saw that your doll was broken. I hope you don't mind, but I made you something." He sets the box down halfway, between them, opening it with careful movements. "Only if you'd like to see it, of course." The girl's focus shifts to the box, her head tilting slightly as she processes this new development. Thomas remembers Claire's words about Sarah. Let her set the pace. Her hesitation isn't rejection, it's assessment. In the background, the mother has stopped moving, her expression a complex mixture of concern and curiosity. Thomas pretends not to notice her presence, keeping his attention gently focused on the child before him. "My daughter Sarah likes to know how things feel before she holds them," Thomas offers, his voice still soft. "Would you like me to show you the different textures?" He demonstrates by running his finger along the doll's smooth wooden arm. Then, over the soft cashmere dress, the girl edges closer, her movements precise and purposeful. Her fingers extend, hovering over the doll without touching, testing the air around it as Sarah often does with new things. Thomas remains perfectly still, letting her explore at her own pace. The first touch is tentative, one finger brushing the doll's wooden hand. Then another touch, more deliberate, exploring the smooth joint of the arm. Thomas watches her face, seeing the subtle shifts of expression that most would miss, but that he's learned to read through years of loving Sarah. The head is slightly weighted, he explains quietly. Sometimes that helps when things feel overwhelming. And look, he demonstrates with gentle movements, every part can move and stay exactly where you put it. The girl lifts the doll with surprising care, her fingers exploring every feature with methodical precision. Thomas notices her breathing change, becoming deeper and more regular, a sign he recognizes from Sarah's moments of finding something that truly connects. Behind them, the mother has drawn closer, close enough that Thomas can hear her sharp intake of breath as she watches her daughter engage with the doll. He doesn't turn, doesn't acknowledge her presence. This moment belongs to the child, her discovery, her pace. The clothes can come off and go back on. Thomas adds softly, "The seams are all on the outside, and there are no tags." He remembers the hours spent ensuring every detail would offer comfort rather than challenge. The girl hugs the doll to her chest, and Thomas sees it, the moment of connection, of finding something that fits her world perfectly. It's the same look Sarah had when he gave her her first custom-made toy, the recognition of being understood without words. Only now does Thomas stand, slowly and carefully, to avoid disrupting the moment. He closes the empty box, tucks it under his arm, and offers a gentle smile. "I hope she helps you tell your stories," he says, preparing to step away. He has another hour before Sarah's lesson ends, and his daughter needs the world to stay predictable. Rachel sits in her home office, the city lights twinkling beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, but her attention is fixed on the tablet before her. The private investigator's report on Thomas Mitchell fills the screen, comprehensive, detailed, yet somehow failing to capture the essence of the man she watched in the park today. Emma sleeps down the hall, the custom-made doll tucked against her chest. In the 12 hours since receiving it, her daughter hasn't let the toy out of her sight. Rachel has never seen Emma bond with an object so quickly, so completely. The doll has already been incorporated into her evening routine, its joints carefully arranged into different positions as Emma prepares for sleep. The report paints a modest picture. Thomas Mitchell, 42, widowed father of one. Master craftsman specializing in antique restoration, former business owner, a small workshop that closed after his wife's death 3 years ago. Current residence, an apartment above Henderson's Antiques. Credit score below average. Income, Barely adequate, no criminal record, no suspicious associations, not even a parking ticket in the last decade. Background check complete on subject, reads the investigator's note. Nothing of concern found. Rachel almost laughs at the clinical assessment. Nothing of concern except the inexplicable ability to create something that speaks directly to her daughter's soul. She opens another file. Sarah Mitchell, age 10, diagnosed with autism at age 2, currently enrolled in public school with an IEP, regular occupational therapy sessions, and weekly music lessons. Rachel's throat tightens as she reads the familiar terminology: sensory processing challenges, routine-dependent, highly focused interests. A mirror of Emma's own diagnostic history, albeit without the army of specialists and private programs that Rachel's wealth provides. The next document shows Claire Mitchell's obituary. Rachel finds herself reading it twice, struck by the words, "She leaves behind her loving husband, Thomas, and daughter, Sarah, whom she taught to see the world's beauty in unexpected places." The phrase clicks something into place in Rachel's mind. The deliberate gentleness in Thomas's movements, the careful way he spoke to Emma, the thoughtful design of every aspect of the doll. Her phone buzzes. Another update from Emma's evening care team. Subject shows increased emotional regulation when interacting with new toy. Bedtime routine completed 15 minutes faster than average. Clinical, measured, like everything in their carefully managed life. Rachel moves to Emma's doorway watching her daughter sleep. The doll's wooden hand rests against Emma's cheek, its joints arranged in perfect symmetry. In sleep, Emma's face shows a peace that Rachel rarely sees during waking hours. Back in her office, she pulls up security footage from the park. Her position comes with certain privileges. She watches again as Thomas approaches Emma, his movements choreographed with careful consideration. No sudden gestures, no forced interaction, no expectation of immediate response. She's paid specialists hundreds of dollars an hour who didn't show such intuitive understanding of autism. A new file appears. In her inbox, photos of Thomas's current workshop. The space is small, cramped with tools and projects. Rachel's trained eye sees the potential there, the skill evident even in the cluttered space. She thinks of Chen Innovation's new children's technology division, their struggle to design interfaces that work for neurodivergent users. Their teams of experts and focus groups haven't achieved what Thomas created in one night with wood and wool. She opens her company's financial records, specifically the budget for their accessibility initiative. The numbers are impressive, but the results haven't matched the investment. Perhaps they've been approaching it wrong, throwing money and technology at a challenge that requires something else, something more fundamental. The night deepens around her as Rachel constructs a proposal. On paper, it looks like a business strategy, bringing artisanal expertise in-house, developing a line of adaptive toys, expanding their accessibility focus to include traditional crafts. The projected figures are conservative enough to satisfy the board, the potential market large enough to justify the investment. But as she works, Rachel acknowledges the truth to herself. This isn't really about business strategy or market expansion. It's about the peace on Emma's sleeping face, the gentle understanding in Thomas's movements, the possibility of finding someone who sees her daughter's world as clearly as she's always wished she could. She closes the files, her decision made. Tomorrow, she'll approach Thomas Mitchell with an offer. The question is, how do you quantify in business terms something as priceless as understanding? Morning light filters through the dusty window wells of Thomas's workshop, catching the motes that dance above his current project, a Victorian writing desk with a stubborn drawer mechanism. The familiar sounds of Mrs. Henderson opening the antique shop upstairs drift through the floorboards when the bell above the door chimes unexpectedly early. Mr. Mitchell. The voice is confident but gentle, careful not to startle. Thomas looks up to find a woman in a tailored suit standing at his workshop entrance, her presence somehow both commanding and tentative. He recognizes her immediately. from the park, though her business attire is a far cry from yesterday's casual wear. "I'm Rachel Chen," she continues, holding out a business card that catches the workshop light. "I believe you met my daughter Emma yesterday." Her eyes scan the workshop, taking in the organized chaos of his space, tools arranged with precise care amid the creative disorder of ongoing projects. Thomas wipes his hands on his apron, suddenly aware of the contrast between her elegance and his sawdust-covered workspace. "She's a remarkable girl," he offers, thinking of Emma's careful exploration of the doll. "I hope the gift was appropriate. Sometimes I act on instinct when—" "The doll," Rachel interrupts, her professional demeanor softening slightly, "is the first toy she's ever slept with. She arranged it exactly 7 times before bed, and this morning she added it to her morning routine chart." She pulls out her phone, showing him a photo of Emma, carefully positioning the doll while getting ready for school. Thomas recognizes the methodology in Emma's movements, so similar to Sarah's own morning rituals. "The joints are designed to hold any position," he explains. "Sometimes having that control, that predictability, helps make sense of an unpredictable world," Rachel finishes. Their eyes meet in a moment of shared understanding. She gestures to a relatively clear workbench. "May we sit? I have a proposition that might interest you." Thomas clears space on the old wooden stools, apologizing for the humble seating. Rachel waves off his concern, settling onto the stool with unexpected ease. She opens her leather portfolio, but her attention remains on the partially restored desk nearby. "You understand something that my entire R&D department hasn't grasped," she begins. "We've spent millions developing adaptive toys and tools for children with autism, focus groups, specialists, cutting-edge technology, and none of them have achieved what you created in one night with wood and wool." Thomas feels a flutter of anxiety, similar to what Sarah experiences with unexpected changes. "I just tried to make something that might help, the way I learned to help Sarah." "Exactly." Rachel leans forward, her business persona melting into something more personal. "You learned through love and necessity. That understanding. It can't be manufactured or programmed. But maybe it can be shared." She pulls out a folder, opening it to reveal photographs of a large, well-lit workspace. Chen Innovations is launching a new division focused on adaptive toys and tools. "We have the technology, the resources, the distribution networks. What we need is heart, understanding, the kind that comes from lived experience." Thomas's hands fidget with a piece of sandpaper. A habit Sarah knows means he's processing something complex. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity," Rachel corrects gently. "Your own workspace, complete creative freedom, a team to handle production once you perfect each design, the chance to help not just one child, but thousands." She pauses, watching him absorb this. "And of course, comprehensive benefits, including additional support for Sarah's educational needs." The mention of Sarah makes Thomas's heart skip. He thinks of the stack of bills in his drawer, the growing cost of her music lessons, the specialized programs they can barely afford. "It sounds overwhelming," he admits honestly. Rachel's expression softens further. "Change is difficult, especially for our children. But sometimes it's worth the temporary disruption." She pulls out another photo, Emma at breakfast, the doll positioned carefully beside her plate. "You've already changed one child's world for the better. Imagine how many more you could help." Thomas looks around his cramped workshop, thinking of Claire. She always said his greatest gift was seeing the potential in damaged things, bringing beauty back to what others might discard. Could I see the workspace first, and maybe meet some of the team?" "Of course." Rachel stands, brushing sawdust from her suit with surprising nonchalance. "We can do this at whatever pace feels comfortable. I understand the importance of transition planning." She smiles, a genuine expression that reaches her eyes. "After all, I have some experience with carefully managed changes." Thomas nods, recognizing in her the same careful consideration he gives to Sarah's needs. When Sarah tries something new, he says slowly, we always have a backup plan, a way back to familiar ground if it becomes too much. Then that's exactly how we'll approach this, Rachel agrees. She reaches into her portfolio one last time, producing a simple contract. Take your time, review it with anyone you trust. My direct number is there if you have questions. She moves toward the stairs, then pauses. And Thomas, thank you, not just for the job consideration, but for seeing Emma, really seeing her. After she leaves, Thomas sits in his workshop's familiar quiet, Claire's words echoing in his memory. Sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as challenges. He pulls out his phone to text Sarah's music teacher, perhaps tomorrow's lesson. Could include a conversation about handling new experiences. The new workshop keys feel heavy in Thomas's hand as he stands before the modern glass building. Sarah clutches his other hand, her fingers tapping out a nervous rhythm against his palm, their private Morse code for "this is different." It's Saturday. Rachel suggested they visit first on a quiet day, giving Sarah time to process the new environment without the bustle of a working week. Remember what we practiced? Thomas asks softly. Sarah nods, her free hand touching the social storybook they'd made together, tucked safely in her backpack. Each page contains photos Rachel had sent. The building's entrance, the elevator, the workshop space. They've reviewed it 27 times in the past week. Sarah kept count. The security guard, briefed in advance, greets them with exactly the words Rachel had prescribed. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell and Miss Sarah. Your workspace is on level 3. No unexpected questions, no deviation from the script. Thomas feels a surge of gratitude for Rachel's attention to detail. The elevator rides smoothly to the 3rd floor, its movements so precise that Sarah doesn't even tighten her grip. The doors open to reveal Rachel waiting with Emma, both dressed. Casually for the weekend, Emma holds Thomas's doll, its arms arranged in a welcoming gesture that makes him smile. Welcome to your workshop, Rachel says warmly, but she's watching the girls. Emma has positioned herself exactly 6 feet from the elevator, close enough for interaction, far enough for comfort. Sarah's fingers slow their tapping as she recognizes the thoughtful spacing. The workshop itself takes Thomas's breath away. Natural light floods the space through north-facing windows, perfect for detailed work. Traditional woodworking tools share space with modern equipment he's only read about. A separate area holds fabric and soft materials, all meticulously organized by texture and weight. We followed your old workshop's layout, Rachel explains, but with some improvements. Every tool has its designated place, labeled and coded. She gestures to the color-coding system that mirrors the one Thomas uses at home for Sarah's belongings. Sarah's grip loosens slightly as she spots a familiar element, a pegboard identical to the one from their old workshop, his tools arranged in exactly the same pattern. Rachel catches his questioning look. Mrs. Henderson was very helpful in photographing your original setup. Emma approaches Sarah with measured steps, the doll held out like a bridge between them. I arranged her joints 17 different ways, she says, her voice carrying the slight monotone Thomas recognizes from Sarah. Do you want to see? Sarah looks to Thomas for reassurance. At his gentle nod, she releases his hand and moves toward Emma. The girls settle in a corner where Rachel has placed soft cushions and fidget toys, another thoughtful touch. The production team won't start for another month, Rachel says quietly, leading Thomas to his main workbench. That gives you time to settle in, establish routines. She hands him a tablet. This will let you document your designs, but you can still work with your hands as much as you prefer. Thomas runs his fingers along the workbench's edge, solid, maple, perfectly smoothed. This is overwhelming, he admits, watching Sarah and Emma begin to arrange the doll's limbs together, counting positions in synchronized whispers. Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming? Rachel asks, and he hears in her voice the same careful assessment he uses with Sarah. Different overwhelming, he answers honestly. Like when Sarah tries a new food. We don't know if it's good or bad until we've given it time. He opens his tool roll, the familiar weight of his chisels grounding him. But Claire always said that growth happens at the edges of our comfort zones. Rachel smiles, watching their daughters now sitting shoulder to shoulder, their movements falling into an unconscious rhythm. Emma showed me her morning routine chart yesterday. She'd added a new category, check doll positions with Sarah, Saturdays 10 a.m. Thomas feels something warm bloom in his chest. Sarah asked for a new section in her schedule book too. Workshop time with Emma. He places his favorite chisel in its designated spot on the pegboard. Maybe this transition won't be so hard on them. Or on us. Rachel's question carries a hint of vulnerability beneath her usual confidence. Before Thomas can respond, Sarah calls out, "Dad! Emma knows about joint angles. She understands about making things line up exactly right." The excitement in her voice, so rare with new people, makes both parents turn. The girls have arranged the doll in a complex pose, its limbs creating precise geometric shapes. Emma is explaining something about degrees and symmetry, while Sarah nods enthusiastically, their shared language of patterns bridging the gap between unfamiliarity and connection. Thomas begins unpacking his tools, each one finding its place. In this new space, through the windows, sunlight catches the dust motes dancing above the workbench, reminding him of mornings in his old workshop. But now the light falls on two girls finding common ground in careful measurements and exact angles. Their parents watching with cautious hope as new possibilities unfold. A shared lunch wasn't part of the original transition plan, but when Emma and Sarah spent their third Saturday morning perfectly arranging tools on Thomas's workbench, Rachel found herself suggesting it. Now she stands in her penthouse kitchen, watching Thomas carefully unpack the lunchboxes he's brought, each compartment measured and organized with familiar precision. Sarah prefers her food separated, he explains, though Rachel recognizes the same consideration she uses in preparing Emma's meals. And everything cut into equal-sized pieces, they say together, sharing a knowing smile. The girls sit at the kitchen island, their heads bent over a sketch of a new toy design. Sarah's precise mechanical drawings complement Emma's detailed notes about textures and weights. They've developed their own workflow over the past few weeks, communicating through diagrams and carefully spaced collaboration. The spring mechanism needs to move exactly 3 centimeters. Sarah explains, her pencil making careful marks. Emma nods, adding a note about the required tension. They've inherited their parents' perfectionism, channeled through their unique perspectives. Thomas begins arranging the lunch components with practiced care. Rachel watches his hands, artist's hands, she's come to think of them, as they position each element with thoughtful precision. She's learned to read his movements. Like a language, just as she suspects he's learned to interpret her carefully modulated tones. "I brought extra dragon fruit," Thomas mentions casually. Sarah mentioned Emma liked the pattern of the seeds during snack time last week. The consideration behind this simple gesture makes Rachel's throat tight. How many business dinners has she attended where her daughter's needs were seen as inconvenient rather than worth this kind of attention? Emma looks up at the mention of dragon fruit, her fingers performing their subtle, happy dance, a movement Rachel notices Sarah mirroring unconsciously. The girls have begun adopting each other's stims, a sign of comfort and connection that no therapy session has ever achieved. "I thought we could eat in the garden," Rachel suggests, gesturing toward the rooftop space she'd had redesigned for Emma. "The new sensory plants arrived yesterday." Sarah's eyes light up at this. "The ones with different leaf textures. Emma told me about the plans. Did they include the lamb's ear plant? That's my favorite for soft touches." Rachel nods, leading them to the elevator. She'd specifically requested lamb's ear after hearing Sarah describe it during one of their workshop sessions. The elevator ride is smooth and quick. She'd had the mechanics adjusted to Emma's preferences years ago, and she's noticed how Sarah relaxes into the predictable motion. The rooftop garden greets them with carefully orchestrated beauty, raised. Beds contain plants arranged by texture, color, and scent. A pergola provides dappled shade, and wind chimes offer gentle acoustic feedback about air movements, something both girls find grounding. They settle at a table beneath the pergola, the girls automatically arranging their plates with matching precision. Thomas helps them position everything just so, his movements fluid from years of practice. Rachel finds herself studying his patient guidance, so different from the brisk efficiency of Emma's usual caregivers. "Dad," Sarah says suddenly, "Emma's planned 7 different texture combinations for the new comfort toy. That's a prime number." Her voice carries the excitement of sharing a special interest with someone who understands its importance. "And Sarah calculated the exact measurements for each component," Emma adds, her usual reserved tone warming with enthusiasm. "The proportions follow the Fibonacci sequence." Rachel watches Thomas's face soften as he listens to their exchange. She recognizes the expression, the same one she feels transforming her own features when Emma engages so naturally with Sarah. Their children, often isolated by their unique ways of seeing the world, have found in each other a shared language of patterns and precision. The lunch proceeds with comfortable rhythm, each person's needs intuitively accommodated. When Emma needs to touch each vegetable exactly 3 times before eating, Sarah waits patiently, understanding the ritual. When Sarah requires her apple slices arranged in a perfect spiral, Emma helps position them with mathematical accuracy. Thomas catches Rachel's eye across the table, and she sees in his smile the same wonder she feels. Their separate worlds of careful accommodation are merging, creating something new, a space where their children's characteristics aren't challenges to be managed, but natural variations to be understood. A gentle breeze stirs the wind chimes, their tone perfect and predictable. Emma and Sarah pause in their eating to count the sounds together, their voices harmonizing in the simple act of finding order in the world. Rachel feels Thomas's presence beside her like a counterweight, balancing her high-tech solutions with his handcrafted understanding. The shared lunchbox between their daughters seems to symbolize something larger, the beginning of a bridge between their different lives, built with the same careful attention they've always given their children's needs. The headline in the Business Journal catches Thomas off guard during his morning coffee. Chen Innovation's New Direction, Tech Titan's Personal Connection to Adaptive Toy Line. Below, a photo shows Rachel at a recent press conference, his prototype, toys displayed on the table before her. The article speculates about the mysterious craftsman behind the designs and Rachel's hands-on involvement in the project. Sarah notices his distraction immediately. She's always been attuned to subtle shifts in his mood. "The coffee cup hasn't moved in 47 seconds, she observes from her usual breakfast spot. "That means something's wrong." Before Thomas can respond, his phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. "I'm sorry. The press got ahead of our planned announcement. Can we talk?" The workshop feels different that morning. Security has been enhanced at the building entrance, and Thomas notices a photographer lingering across the street. He guides Sarah through their alternate entrance route, another of Rachel's careful contingency plans, but his daughter still picks up on the change in atmosphere. "The air feels scratchy today," Sarah says as they reach the workshop, her way of describing tension. Emma is already there, arranging prototype toys with mathematical precision, while Rachel speaks quietly but intensely into her phone. "No, we're not ready for a full press release," Rachel is saying, her CEO voice firmly in place. "The project is still in development, and we need to—" She catches sight of Thomas and Sarah, her expression softening even as she maintains her professional tone. "We'll discuss this at the board meeting. That's final." Emma looks up from her arranging, immediately noticing Sarah's discomfort. "Want to help me categorize the new prototypes?" she offers. "I've developed 7 different classification systems." The girls gravitate toward each other, finding comfort in their shared love of organization. Rachel ends her call and approaches Thomas, her movements carrying the careful precision he's come to associate with her handling of delicate situations. "The board is pushing for more publicity," she explains quietly. "They see the potential market value, but they're missing the point of what we're trying to create here." Thomas runs his hand along a newly completed prototype, a set of blocks designed to help children with motor planning challenges. "I'm not comfortable being in the spotlight," he admits. "And Sarah, changes like this are hard for her." "I know," Rachel sighs, watching their daughters work together. "Emma's morning routine was disrupted by a photographer today. It took us 45 minutes to reset." Her hand moves unconsciously toward her daughter, an instinctive gesture of protection. The workshop door opens, admitting a group of board members led by Harrison Wells, the company's marketing director. Their polished appearances and brisk energy feel jarring in the carefully calibrated calm of the workspace. "Rachel, we need to discuss the marketing strategy," Harrison announces, his voice too loud for the space. Both Emma and Sarah flinch at the sudden intrusion. "These designs are revolutionary. We're thinking a full media campaign, personal interest stories, really lean into the human angle." "Harrison," Rachel interrupts, her tone carrying a warning edge. "We had this discussion, no major publicity until we're ready." But Harrison is already moving through the workshop, picking up prototypes with careless hands. "Look at these craftsmanship details. The market for special needs toys is expanding, and with your personal connection to autism, please don't touch that." Thomas interjects quietly but firmly as Harrison reaches for a particularly delicate prototype. The alignment hasn't set yet. From the corner of his eye, he sees Sarah's hands begin their anxious fluttering, a sign that her carefully structured environment is feeling threatened. "Oh, of course, sorry," Harrison says dismissively. "But Rachel, think about it. Your story, a single mother of an autistic child, partnering with—" He glances at Thomas, taking in his workshop apron and sawdust-covered hands, "a local craftsman. It's perfect for human interest pieces." Rachel's posture changes subtly, a shift Thomas recognizes as her CEO armor sliding into place. "Harrison, this isn't a publicity stunt. We're creating something meaningful here, something that requires privacy, and privacy doesn't build market share." Harrison interrupts. "The board needs to see returns on this investment. Your personal project has already consumed significant resources." The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. Personal project, investment returns, the careful world they've been building reduced to business metrics and marketing opportunities. He watches Emma and Sarah retreat to their quiet corner, hands pressed against their ears as the workshop fills with unwelcome energy. Rachel must sense his withdrawal. "Thomas," she begins, but he's already moving toward the girls, his instinct to protect Sarah overriding everything else. "Maybe we should continue this discussion in the conference room," Rachel says to Harrison, her voice tight with controlled frustration. But the damage is done. The sanctuary of their workshop has been breached, and Thomas can feel the carefully constructed bridge between their worlds beginning to tremble. Thomas stands in his workshop after hours, the evening light casting long shadows across his workbench. The board meeting's voices still echo in his head. He hadn't meant to overhear their discussion through the conference room's partially open door, but Sarah had needed to retrieve her forgotten notebook, and timing had placed him in the wrong place at the wrong moment. "Rachel, you need to be objective about this," Harrison's voice had carried clearly. "The craftsman angle is charming, but we need someone more polished for the public rollout. Someone who can speak to shareholders, handle media interviews. He's just not corporate material." Now Thomas's fingers trace the edges of the resignation letter he spent the past hour composing. The workshop feels different in the emptiness, all the possibility of the space somehow muted. His tools are still arranged exactly as he likes. Them, but they no longer feel like an extension of his hands. The prototype he'd been working on sits unfinished. A puzzle box designed to help children practice emotional regulation through sequential problem solving. Emma had helped with the concept, describing how feelings sometimes felt locked inside her. Sarah had added the idea for texture-based clues, each solution providing a different sensory reward. His phone buzzes with another text from Rachel. "Where are you? The girls are asking about tomorrow's workshop session." He can't bring himself to respond. How can he explain that he's protecting not just his dignity, but the purity of what they've created here? The sound of the workshop door opening breaks. His reverie. Rachel stands there, silhouetted against the hallway lights, her CEO armor stripped away by concern. "Thomas, security said you were still here, and when you didn't answer my messages..." "I heard the board meeting," he says quietly, watching her face shift with understanding, "about finding someone more corporate material for the project." Rachel moves into the workshop, her usual confidence wavering. "Harrison doesn't understand what we're doing here. He sees markets and demographics, not Emma's face when she masters a new toy, not Sarah's joy in the creating process." "That's just it," Thomas responds, his hand resting on the resignation letter. "This was never supposed to be about markets or demographics. It was about understanding our children, about creating something genuine for others like them. It still can be," Rachel insists, moving closer. "I can handle the board, redirect the publicity." "At what cost?" Thomas interrupts gently. "I saw your face in that meeting, Rachel. You were trying to balance everything, your company's interests, the board's demands, our connection." The last word carries the weight of everything unspoken between them. "The girls," Rachel begins, her voice catching. "They've made so much progress together. Emma's meltdowns have decreased by 60% since she started working with Sarah on the designs." Thomas feels the truth of this like a physical ache. "Sarah added a new color to her acceptance spectrum yesterday," he offers. "She said Emma helped her understand that change doesn't always mean wrong." The irony of this hits them both, standing in the dimming workshop light. Rachel moves to the prototype puzzle box, her fingers finding the first texture-based clue automatically. "We can find a way," she says, but her voice carries the uncertainty of someone used to solving problems with resources and influence, facing something money can't fix. "Sometimes," Thomas says, thinking of Claire's wisdom, "protecting something valuable means knowing when to step back." He places the resignation letter on his workbench. "I'll help transition the current projects, document everything so the new team can continue the work. But I need to do this on my terms, not as a marketing strategy or a corporate success story." Rachel picks up the letter, her hands uncharacteristically uncertain. "And us?" The question holds more than professional concern. "I don't know," Thomas answers honestly. "Sarah's teaching me that some patterns need to be broken before they can be rebuilt better. Maybe this is one of those times." The workshop feels heavy with possibility and loss. Through the windows, the city lights begin to twinkle on, reminding Thomas of Emma's description of how her thoughts light up one by one during problem-solving. Somewhere in those lights, two girls who found understanding in each other's differences are probably wondering about tomorrow's workshop session. "I'll tell them," Rachel offers, though her voice suggests she hasn't figured out how. Maybe we can find a way to maintain their connection, even if..." She doesn't finish the sentence, but Thomas understands. "Even if their own connection, so carefully built through shared understanding and quiet moments, has to be sacrificed to protect what matters most, their children's well-being and the integrity of what they've created together." Emma's meltdown lasts for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Rachel times it precisely, the way she times everything in their carefully managed life. It's the third one this week, each triggered by the absence of workshop sessions with Sarah. The doll that Thomas made sits untouched in the corner of Emma's room, its joints locked in the last position Sarah had helped arrange. In her home office, Rachel stares at the handwritten note she's been trying to compose for days. Corporate. Communication she can handle. Emails, reports, press releases flow easily from her fingers. But this needs to be different, personal, real, the kind of communication she's watched Thomas and Sarah share through their subtle gestures and quiet understanding. "Mom?" Emma's voice carries from the doorway, still rough from crying. "The pattern is wrong now. Everything is wrong." She stands with her tablet clutched to her chest, where she's been obsessively reviewing the workshop design sketches she and Sarah created together. Rachel recognizes the deeper meaning in her daughter's words. The pattern isn't just wrong in their daily schedule, it's wrong in their lives. The careful rhythm they'd found with Thomas and Sarah has been disrupted, leaving jagged edges where smooth transitions used to be. Across town, Thomas sits in his old workshop beneath Mrs. Henderson's store, attempting to lose himself in the familiar comfort of woodworking. But Sarah stands at her window upstairs, counting passing cars with none of her usual enthusiasm. "Red car number 12, she announces flatly. Emma would have calculated the probability of repeated colors by now. The unfinished puzzle box from his last day at Chen Innovations sits on his workbench, brought home more out of habit than intention. Sarah walks down to the workshop during her designated break time, her movements lacking their usual precision. She runs her fingers along the box's texture-based clues, the ones Emma helped design. "Dad," she says, her voice carrying the slight tremor that signals emotional overload, "when you taught me about wood grain, you said some patterns look broken, but they're actually just changing direction." She traces a particularly complex whirl in the puzzle box's surface. "Is that what's happening now?" Thomas sets down his chisel, recognizing his daughter's attempt to process change through familiar metaphors. "Sometimes," he begins, then stops, remembering how Rachel would take time to find exactly the right words for Emma. "Sometimes, grown-ups make decisions to protect something important, but those decisions can create new patterns we didn't expect." Her penthouse office, Rachel finally begins to write. "Thomas, Emma told me today that patterns can't be wrong, only incomplete." She learned that from Sarah. Our daughters understand something that we, with all our adult complexity, nearly missed. Sometimes what looks like an ending is really a space waiting for a new connection. The board met yesterday. I reminded them that Chen Innovations was built on understanding needs others overlooked. But somewhere along the way, I overlooked the most important need, the need for authenticity in what we're creating. You were right to protect that authenticity. I see that now. Would you and Sarah consider helping us find a new pattern, one that preserves what matters while making space for change? She signs her name, then adds a postscript. Emma says the puzzle box is stuck on step 3. Sarah's the only one who knows the texture sequence for the next phase. Back in his workshop, Thomas receives an unexpected delivery, a small package, from Chen Innovations' shipping department. Inside, he finds a prototype that Emma and Sarah had been working on before everything changed. Attached is a note in Emma's precise handwriting. The measurements are exact, but the pattern feels incomplete. Sarah knows why. Sarah examines the prototype with careful fingers. Emma aligned everything to the Fibonacci sequence, she observes, but she left space for additional elements. She always leaves space for growth. That's what makes her calculations special. Thomas watches his daughter analyze the design, seeing in her methodical examination the same dedication he's always brought to his craft. "Should we help them complete the pattern?" he asks softly. Sarah's hands still on the prototype. "Emma taught me that incomplete doesn't mean incorrect," she says, echoing Rachel's note without knowing it. "And you taught me that sometimes we need to sand away old finishes to reveal the beauty underneath." That evening, 2 notes cross paths in the city, one traveling up to a penthouse with a rooftop garden, the other making its way to a small apartment above an antique shop. Both carry the same essential message. Sometimes, understanding requires stepping back far enough to see the whole pattern, even if that pattern is still evolving. The drawing appears on Rachel's desk early Monday morning, a detailed technical sketch showing the prototype puzzle box, but with modifications. Emma recognizes Sarah's precise mechanical drafting style, but the notes in the margins are clearly her own daughter's handwriting. At the bottom, in carefully aligned letters, meeting in the garden, Saturday, 10 a.m. The pattern needs all four of us. Across town, Thomas finds an identical drawing tucked into Sarah's schedule board, the morning routine temporarily adjusted to accommodate what Emma has labeled Pattern Reconstruction Phase 1. His daughter studies the modification with unusual calm. Emma calculated the optimal time for minimal sensory interference, she explains. The garden wind chimes sound best at 10 a.m. The girls have orchestrated everything with meticulous attention to detail. Rachel arrives at the rooftop garden to find Emma and Sarah already there, the prototype puzzle box centered on the table beneath the pergola. They've arranged 4 chairs at mathematically precise intervals, close enough for conversation, far enough for comfort. Thomas emerges from the elevator moments later, carrying a wooden box Sarah recognizes from their old workshop. The girls exchange a look of quiet satisfaction, their plan unfolding exactly as designed. "Before you talk," Emma announces, her voice carrying the slight monotone that emerges when she's focusing intensely, "we need to demonstrate something." She looks to Sarah, who nods and begins arranging components of the puzzle box. The original design was incomplete, Sarah explains, her fingers moving with practiced precision. Not wrong, incomplete. Emma and I have been working on it separately, but it doesn't function properly without both halves of the pattern. Rachel and Thomas watch in silence as their daughters demonstrate. Sarah shows how her mechanical sequences create a framework, while Emma reveals how her textural elements provide essential feedback. Apart, each component is impressive, but limited. Together, they create something transformative. "Mom," Emma says, turning to Rachel with unusual directness, "you always say that successful systems require all components working in harmony." Her fingers trace the puzzle box's surface. "This is our system. All 4 of us." Sarah picks up the thread with characteristic precision. "Dad, remember when you taught me about joint strength in woodworking? How some connections look delicate but are actually stronger because they allow for natural movement." Thomas feels Rachel's gaze on him, understanding blooming between them. Their children, so often challenged by emotional expression, have crafted a perfect metaphor for what their families have built together. "The board doesn't understand," Emma continues, her voice carrying an echo of Rachel's business presentations. "They see the final product, but not the process, not the pattern. And the pattern is the most important part," Sarah adds, her hands making the familiar fluttering movement that Thomas recognizes as emotional emphasis. "Emma helps me understand new patterns. I help her refine existing ones. It's a balanced system." Rachel moves closer to the table, her corporate armor softened by understanding. "And what about your fathers and me? What's our role in this pattern?" The girls share another look, a silent communication they've developed over months of collaboration. "You provide the structure," Emma explains, "like the framework of a well-designed system, and the protection to explore safely," Sarah adds. "Like Dad's workshop rules about tool handling, not restrictions, but guidelines for creative freedom." Thomas finds himself studying the puzzle box, seeing in its hybrid design all the elements they've brought together, his craftsmanship, Rachel's innovation, and their children's unique perspectives. "So this isn't just about the toys we're creating," he says slowly. "The toys are part of the pattern," Emma confirms, "but patterns need all their elements to be complete." She demonstrates by attempting to open the puzzle box using only half the sequence. "See? It doesn't work without every component." Rachel watches their daughters work in synchronized focus, remembering all the specialists who said Emma might never form meaningful peer relationships. Beside her, Thomas observes, Sarah's confident interactions, so different from her usual hesitancy with others. "We've been approaching this wrong," Rachel says softly, "trying to fit our pattern into existing corporate structures instead of letting it define its own form, like trying to force straight grain where the wood naturally curves." Thomas agrees. The craftsman's metaphor bridging their different vocabularies. The wind chimes sound in perfect sequence. Emma had calculated this moment precisely. Sarah reaches into the wooden box Thomas brought, withdrawing a set of mechanical drawings. "We have ideas," she announces, "about how to make the pattern work for everyone." Their daughters, who see the world through the lens of patterns and precision, have drafted not just toy designs, but a blueprint for connection. As Rachel and Thomas lean in to study the drawings, they find themselves shoulder to shoulder, their own pattern realigning under their children's careful guidance. The new workshop space takes shape gradually, like a piece of wood, revealing its natural grain under careful handling. It's not in the Chen Innovations building anymore, but in a renovated warehouse space that Rachel helped secure. Close enough to the company for convenience, far enough to maintain independence. Thomas's craftsmanship now fills the main floor, while a state-of-the-art prototype lab occupies the upper level. "It's a hybrid system," Emma explains to visitors, her confidence growing with each presentation. Like the puzzle box, traditional crafting methods enhanced by modern technology. She stands straighter these days, finding her voice in explaining the unique approach they've developed. Sarah manages the workshop schedule with precise care, her organizational skills flourishing with real responsibility. Tuesday afternoons are for sensory testing, she tells the small team of artisans Thomas has begun training. "Emma and I developed a 17-point evaluation system based on combined experiences." Rachel watches from the mezzanine as Thomas guides a new craftsperson through the basics of working with sensitivity in mind. His expertise is no longer just about the woodworking. It's about understanding the deeper purpose behind each creation. The board has finally recognized that this understanding, more than any marketing strategy, is what makes their products unique. The original prototype submissions increased by 43%. Emma reports during their weekly family dinner, her tablet covered in carefully annotated graphs. These dinners have become a regular pattern, alternating between Rachel's penthouse and Thomas's newly renovated apartment above the workshop. And product testing feedback shows a 91% positive response rate. Sarah adds, her voice carrying the quiet pride Thomas recognizes from his own achievements. The girls have become an inseparable team. Their different approaches to problem-solving, creating solutions neither could develop alone. Rachel finds herself leaving the office earlier these days, drawn to the workshop where real innovation happens. She's learned to read wood grain alongside profit margins, to see value in handcrafted precision as much as market analytics. The corporate world is learning too. Their therapeutic toy line has become a case study in authentic product development. It's not just about the toys anymore, Thomas observes one evening as they watch their daughters conduct a detailed analysis of texture variations. It's about creating space for different ways of seeing the world. The workshop has become more than a production facility. It's a learning center where other parents bring their children, where teachers come to understand different learning styles, where corporate executives learn that success can't always be measured in conventional metrics. Sarah's music teacher now holds sessions in a specially designed corner of the workshop, where the acoustics are perfect and the environment familiar. Emma sits in sometimes, translating the patterns of music into mathematical sequences that help her understand rhythm and tone. "Remember when we thought we had to choose between authenticity and success?" Rachel asks Thomas during a quiet moment. They're reviewing designs together, their different perspectives merging into something stronger than either could achieve alone. The changes extend beyond the workshop. Rachel's board meetings now include regular presentations from their experts, Emma, and Sarah sharing their experiences and insights with a confidence that grows with each session. The corporate world is learning to listen to different voices, to value understanding over image. Thomas's crafting classes have expanded to include parents and caregivers learning to create custom solutions for their children's specific needs. Every piece tells a story, he teaches them, words that now carry even more meaning than when Claire first shared them with him. The family photo on Rachel's desk shows all four of them in the workshop, surrounded by their creations. It's not a posed corporate shot, but a candid moment captured during a prototype testing session. Emma is explaining a mathematical concept to Sarah, their hands moving in synchronized excitement. Rachel and Thomas stand together in the background, their posture relaxed and natural, no longer separated by artificial boundaries of class or corporate expectations. "We created our own pattern," Emma observes one day, arranging tools with mathematical precision, like a new kind of sacred geometry. Sarah nods, understanding perfectly. Dad says the strongest structures are the ones that grow naturally from need, rather than being forced into predetermined shapes. Rachel overhears this exchange and catches Thomas's eye across the workshop. They share a smile, recognizing in their daughter's wisdom the truth they'd almost missed, that sometimes the most profound growth comes not from changing who you are, but from finding the courage to be it more completely. The wooden ring box takes Thomas 3 weeks to create, working late after Sarah goes to bed. It's a miniature version of their puzzle box design, incorporating all the elements that brought their families together. Each surface tells part of their story through carefully carved textures: the workshop's wood grain, the garden's wind chime patterns, the children's mathematical sequences. Sarah discovers it first, her careful eyes catching the subtle changes in his work routine. "You're using the special rosewood," she observes one morning, "the one that makes the exact same sound as the wind chimes in Rachel's garden." Her fingers trace the air in the pattern of Emma's favorite mathematical sequence. "Would that be okay?" Thomas asks softly, "if we made our pattern permanent?" Sarah considers this with characteristic thoroughness. "Emma calculated that we already spend 78% of our functional hours together as a family unit. A permanent merger would simply reflect existing data." The proposal plan develops with input from both girls, who approach it with the same precision they bring to their prototype designs. Emma creates a detailed timeline, accounting for optimal sensory conditions and minimal environmental variables. Sarah drafts mechanical drawings for the ring box's final positioning, ensuring perfect symmetry. "The garden wind chimes sound best at sunset," Emma reports during their planning session, "and the lighting angles create optimal visual conditions." At approximately 7:43 p.m., she's arranged this data in a color-coded spreadsheet that makes perfect sense to Sarah. The box should be positioned exactly 27 centimeters from the center point of the main garden table, Sarah adds, her calculations complementing Emma's atmospheric analysis. That maintains the golden ratio with the surrounding plant arrangements. Rachel notices the subtle shifts in routine, the quiet conspiracies between their daughters, but she says nothing. She's learned to trust the patterns that emerge naturally between them. During their weekly family dinners, she catches Thomas watching her with a new kind of intentness, his craftsman's hands occasionally touching the pocket where the ring box waits. The evening arrives with mathematical precision. Emma and Sarah have prepared the garden according to their carefully drafted plans. The wind chimes play their gentle sequence, and the setting sun catches the carefully positioned crystals Emma installed, creating patterns of light that dance. Across the garden, Thomas finds Rachel at her usual spot beneath the pergola, where she often ends her day watching their daughters work on their latest projects. The ring box sits perfectly aligned on the table, its carved surfaces catching the evening light. "The girls helped design it," he says softly, watching Rachel's fingers trace the familiar patterns. "They said our family is like one of our prototypes, each piece essential, all parts working in harmony, Rachel recognizes the textures beneath her fingertips, the same ones that helped Emma learn to process overwhelming emotions, the patterns that gave Sarah confidence to explore new experiences. "It's beautiful," she whispers, understanding the hours of craftsmanship and love embedded in every detail. "Like all our best designs," Thomas continues, his voice carrying the same gentle tone he uses when explaining complex patterns to Sarah. "It needs the right sequence to open properly." He guides her hands to the first texture panel, the one that matches the workshop's wooden beams. Together, they work through the sequence, each movement revealing a new layer of their shared story. The final mechanism clicks softly, and the box opens to reveal not just a ring, but a small, handcrafted family of wooden figures, each one capturing the essence of their unique quartet. Emma calculated a 97% probability of success. Sarah announces from where she and Emma watch by the garden entrance. "Based on existing behavioral patterns and observed emotional indicators. And I drafted 3 different contingency plans," Emma adds seriously, "but my calculations suggest they won't be necessary." Rachel looks at the wooden figures, the way they fit together so perfectly, each one enhanced by the other's presence. "The pattern would be incomplete without all the pieces," she says, understanding flowing between them like the evening light through Emma's crystals. Thomas takes her hand, his craftsman's fingers gentle against her skin. "Claire used to say, that love isn't about changing who you are, but finding the people who make you more completely yourself." He looks at their daughters, then back to Rachel. "We've built something rare here, a place where everyone can be exactly who they are." The ring, when Rachel removes it from beneath the wooden figures, carries the same thoughtful design as everything else Thomas creates. Smooth and comfortable, with subtle texture patterns that match both their children's favorite mathematical sequences. "Yes," Rachel says before Thomas can even ask the question. "Our pattern wouldn't be complete without this piece too." The process of combining 2 households becomes another carefully orchestrated pattern, led by Emma and Sarah's meticulous planning. They approach the task like their most complex prototype yet, creating detailed flowcharts for the integration of their separate lives into one cohesive whole. The new house needs to be exactly halfway between the workshop and Chen Innovations, Emma announces, presenting a map marked with precise measurements and optimal travel routes. She's calculated everything from traffic patterns to sunrise angles, ensuring their new home will accommodate everyone's needs. Sarah approaches the interior design with the same attention to detail she brings to their prototype testing. "Each room needs transition spaces," she explains, showing her father the drawings she's created, areas where the textures and colors shift gradually, like the way you sand wood to blend different grains. The house they choose is a Victorian, brownstone with good bones and plenty of character, something that needs restoration, just like the antiques in Thomas's workshop. Rachel sees the poetry in this, watching Thomas run his hands along old woodwork that will soon sing again under his careful touch. "We can create sensory rooms here," Sarah says, mapping out the 3rd floor with Emma. One for processing overwhelming days, one for creative focus, and one for collaborative work. The girls have developed their own understanding of space and function, teaching their parents new ways to think about home. Thomas transforms the basement into a home workshop, but with important differences from his previous spaces. The girls designed specialized stations, he explains to Rachel, showing her the areas dedicated to their daughter's particular interests. Emma can work on her mathematical modeling, while Sarah develops mechanical components. The kitchen becomes a study in accessible design, with Rachel and Thomas working together to combine practical function with sensory consideration. The cabinet handles are wrapped in leather, Thomas points out, the same texture as the workshop tools that help Emma focus. Every detail serves both beauty and purpose. Paint swatches cover one wall of their temporary planning space, arranged not by color but by emotional resonance. "This blue feels like quiet music," Sarah explains, while Emma nods in understanding. And this green has the same pattern as Dad's woodshop in the morning. Their parents learn to see colors through their daughter's eyes, choosing shades that create harmony rather than discord. The moving day schedule runs to 12 pages, with contingency plans for every possible variable. We've allocated 27 minutes for emotional processing during each transition phase, Emma explains, showing Rachel her calculations, and included familiar object placement at regular intervals to maintain stability. Sarah orchestrates the arrangement of Thomas's tools in the new workshop with mathematical precision. The measuring implements need to be grouped by function, but also by texture, she insists. Emma and I developed a dual classification system that optimizes both efficiency and sensory comfort. Rachel watches Thomas carefully unpack Claire's old photographs, finding places where they sit comfortably alongside pictures from Emma's childhood. Different pieces of our story, he says softly, all part of the same pattern now. The girls help arrange the frames, creating a visual timeline that honors all parts of their journey. The house gradually comes together, not like a showroom, but like a living thing, each space reflecting the unique needs and contributions of its inhabitants. Emma's calculations ensure perfect light angles for Sarah's sensory comfort. Sarah's mechanical understanding helps create adaptive spaces that support Emma's processing needs. They install wind chimes in the garden, carefully tuned to match the ones from Rachel's penthouse. The sound wavelengths align perfectly, Emma demonstrates, while Sarah nods appreciatively. It creates continuity between our old pattern and the new one. Thomas crafts custom furniture for each room, incorporating elements from both families' histories. The dining table features inlaid patterns matching Emma's favorite sequences, while the chairs have subtle texture variations that help Sarah regulate during meals. Form and function in harmony, he explains, like our family. Rachel oversees the integration of technology, but with a new understanding of balance. The house is smart but not cold, automated but not impersonal. We're creating a space that adapts to us, she observes, rather than asking us to adapt to it. The girls claim the sunroom as their special project space, filling it with drafting tables and experimental materials. It's where we can work on new patterns, Sarah explains, like how to help other families find their own ways of fitting together. As moving day approaches, Emma presents one final calculation. The probability of successful integration is 98.7%, she announces during family dinner. Higher than any of our previous projects. Sarah adds her own observation. That's because we're not trying to fix anything. We're just finding the right way for all our pieces to fit. Rachel and Thomas exchange glances over their daughters' heads, recognizing once again how much wisdom lives in their children's unique perspectives. Their new home isn't just a space. It's a physical manifestation of their commitment to celebrating rather than changing who they are. 1 year later, Thomas stands in the park where it all began, watching a young parent struggle with their autistic child's meltdown. Without hesitation, he approaches, pulling from his pocket one of the comfort toys that now form the core of their therapeutic toy line. The design is a collaboration. Emma's mathematical precision, Sarah's mechanical insight, his craftsmanship, and Rachel's innovative materials all working in harmony. Sometimes, he says softly to the overwhelmed parent, it's not about changing the pattern. It's about understanding it. He demonstrates how the toy's surfaces change texture under gentle pressure, creating a focusing point for overwhelming emotions. The child's hands find the familiar sequences, their breathing gradually steadying. Back at their workshop-turned-learning center, Rachel leads a group of corporate executives through a very different kind of sensitivity training. Emma and Sarah, now confident 14-year-olds, demonstrate their latest prototype, a teaching tool designed to help businesses understand neurodivergent perspectives. Successful integration isn't about forcing change, Emma explains. Her presentation skills having grown alongside her confidence. It's about creating space for different patterns to exist together. Sarah operates the prototype, showing how rigid corporate structures can adapt without losing stability. Their therapeutic toy line has evolved into something larger, a movement for understanding difference as variety rather than deviation. The workshop hosts regular sessions where parents learn to craft custom solutions for their children's unique needs. Thomas teaches them to read the grain of wood. Rachel shows them how to incorporate adaptive technology. But the most powerful lessons come from watching Emma and Sarah work together. Their different approaches, creating something greater than either could achieve alone. "Mom," Emma says one evening, showing Rachel her latest calculations, "we've helped 342 families find their own patterns this year." Her graphs show not just numbers but impact, reduced meltdowns, increased communication, stronger connections. Sarah adds from her workbench, where she's fine-tuning a new mechanism, and each family adds to our understanding. It's like Dad's wood collection, every piece unique but all of them valuable. She's learned to express emotion through metaphor, finding her own way to share deeper truths. The family photo wall in their home has grown, now including pictures of other families who found their way through the workshop's doors. Each image tells a story of discovery. Parents learning to see their children's differences as strengths, children finding spaces where they can truly be themselves. Rachel no longer counts success in profit margins alone. The real measurements come in moments, a non-verbal child communicating through one of their tactile storytelling tools, a touch-averse teen finding comfort in carefully crafted textures, parents learning to understand their children's unique ways of experiencing the world. Thomas still works with wood every day, but now he's teaching others to create what their children need. "Every piece has its own character," he tells them, echoing Claire's wisdom. "Our job isn't to force it into shape, but to help it reveal its natural beauty." The girls have become leaders in their own right, their weekly workshop sessions attracting families from across the country. Emma's mathematical approach to emotional understanding and Sarah's intuitive grasp of mechanical comfort combined to create solutions that professionals had missed. "We're not fixing anything," Sarah explains, to a newcomer, her hands steady on a prototype. "We're just making space for different ways of being." Emma nods, adding, "Like a well-designed system, every component essential, every pattern valid." In the garden of their home, the wind chimes play their evening sequence, their sounds aligning with Emma's calculations and Sarah's sense of order. Rachel and Thomas sit together, watching their daughters guide another family toward understanding. "Remember when we thought we had to choose between success and authenticity?" Rachel asks, her head resting on Thomas's shoulder. He smiles, thinking of that first wooden doll and all that grew from that simple act of understanding. "Claire would have loved this," he says softly. "She always said every broken thing was just waiting for someone to recognize its true pattern." He watches Sarah demonstrate a new prototype, her movements confident and purposeful. She would have seen this pattern forming even then. Emma joins them, presenting her latest analysis with quiet pride. "Our success rate is holding at 98%, she reports. But the most statistically significant variable isn't in the toys or the techniques. She pauses, finding the precise words. It's in helping people understand that different isn't wrong. It's just a different kind of right. Sarah looks up from her workbench, adding, "Like how the strongest things Dad builds are the ones that work with the wood's natural grain." Her hands move in the familiar flutter that means she's sharing something important. "We're not changing patterns anymore, we're just helping them shine."